Long before the headlines, before the scandal and the courts, there was snow. White, perfect, merciless snow. The mountain was her first opponent, and Molly Bloom knew only one way to live, to win. From the moment she could walk, she was training. Her father was relentless, a professor, a psychologist, a man who believed greatness was born from pain. He timed her runs, criticized her form, pushed her beyond exhaustion. Love and approval came wrapped in competition. To be loved, she had to be the best, and for a long time, she was. Molly Bloom, Olympic hopeful, fearless, lightning fast, a blur of motion on the slopes. Every medal was proof that she could outrun everything: fear, doubt, even her father's impossible expectations. But life, as she would learn, has a way of tripping even the fastest. The morning of her qualifying run, the world felt still, sharp, alive. The cold bit at her cheeks, her lungs burned, and beneath her goggles, her eyes were locked on destiny. But one tiny piece of ice, one freak accident, changed everything. Her ski caught, her body twisted, and in an instant, the dream that defined her life came crashing down the mountain. She should have died. Instead, she landed in a new kind of freefall, the kind where gravity wasn't the enemy anymore. She was. Her Olympic dream was over. Years of sacrifice turned to dust. Her father said it was time to move on, to find purpose, to build a life. But Molly didn't want purpose. She wanted power. Los Angeles was the opposite of the mountains, hot, loud, full of people chasing their own impossible dreams. Molly arrived with no plan, no friends, and just enough defiance to keep breathing. She found odd jobs: a waitress, a secretary, a personal assistant. Then she met him, the man who would open the door to a new world. His name doesn't matter because men like him rarely do. He was rich, arrogant, and ruthless, the kind of man who treated everyone around him like disposable playing cards. But he ran something interesting: a poker game. Molly didn't know the rules, but she knew how to read people, their posture, their tells, their hunger. That was her real gift. The first night she worked the game, she watched millionaires lose their cool and movie stars bluff their way through pride. The air was thick with money, risk, and secrets. It was electric. Her job was simple: keep the players happy, bring them drinks, track their debts, smile. But Molly never stayed simple for long. She took notes: who paid, who didn't, who lied. Within weeks, she understood the ecosystem better than the man who ran it. When he fired her in a fit of ego, she didn't cry. She adapted. She took the game and made it hers. It started in a quiet hotel suite with a single table, then grew into something legendary. Her client list glittered with the names of Hollywood's elite: actors, producers, bankers, athletes. Men who ruled the world during the day came to her table at night chasing a rush they couldn't find anywhere else. And she ruled them all. Molly Bloom became a legend, the woman who ran the most exclusive underground poker game in Los Angeles. Her rules were clear: respect, discretion, no exceptions. She wore power like perfume, invisible but intoxicating. Every player felt it, even if they didn't understand it. She learned that money wasn't the point. Control was, but control has a way of slipping through fingers, no matter how tight the grip. One player, the biggest, the brightest, the most dangerous, decided he wanted it all. He had fame, money, charm, and an ego that could fill the room. He smiled like a friend, but he played like a predator. Slowly, he undermined her, stole her players, whispered poison behind her back. When she realized what he'd done, it was too late. Her empire crumbled overnight. Molly could have quit. Instead, she moved to New York, a colder, sharper city, perfect for a comeback. And there, she built it again. Bigger, smarter, quieter. She ran games for Wall Street titans and Russian oligarchs. The stakes were higher, the risks deadlier, the secrets heavier. But she kept her code. Protect her players, never cross the line, never sell anyone out. For years, she danced on the edge of legality and never slipped. But every empire built in shadows eventually meets the light. The night the FBI broke down her door, it wasn't with anger, it was with inevitability. They called her the Poker Princess, a criminal mastermind, a woman running games for mobsters and millionaires. They didn't see the bruises under the makeup, the loneliness behind the power, or the fear that came from knowing she'd built her kingdom on borrowed time. As she sat in that cold interrogation room, her empire gone, her accounts frozen, her future uncertain, Molly Bloom finally faced the truth. She had always been chasing control, because she'd never truly had any. But even then, she didn't give in. In New York, the city that never slept, Molly found herself surrounded by men who believed they owned the night. Wall Street powerhouses with more ambition than conscience, politicians with smiles polished for cameras, and athletes who spent their victories as fast as they earned them. They all came to her table for the same reason: to feel untouchable for a few fleeting hours. And Molly? She built her empire out of that feeling. Her poker games weren't just games anymore. They were theater. Crystal glasses, tailored suits, women dressed like the city's reflection, sharp, bright, dangerous. She ran everything with precision. No drugs, no violence, no cheating, only trust and the illusion of control. But behind the perfect smile and sharp intellect, she felt something shifting. The nights grew longer. The risks grew heavier. She could feel the gravity of what she'd built pulling her down, little by little. Money poured in, so much money she could barely count it. Tips that would pay rent for months, stacks of cash hidden in safes, names on her contact list that could end careers if they ever got out. She told herself she wasn't doing anything wrong. She wasn't dealing drugs. She wasn't stealing. She was just managing ambition. But ambition is its own addiction. And every addiction comes with a cost. There were nights when she sat alone in her apartment, the city glittering outside her window, and wondered how she'd gotten there. She had power, she had fame, but she didn't have peace. Then came the mob. They weren't supposed to be part of her world. She'd kept the violence out of her circle, protected her players from that darkness. But the higher the stakes grew, the closer danger crept. One night, 2 men showed up at her door, quiet, polite, carrying smiles that didn't reach their eyes. They offered her protection. She refused. Days later, they came again, this time without the smiles. They beat her. They stole her money. They left her bleeding on the floor, a warning carved into the silence. She never went to the police. She just stared at the ceiling that night, her body aching, her pride shattered, and realized that her empire had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. Still, she didn't quit. That was never her way. She rebuilt again, keeping the games smaller, quieter, tighter. She still believed she could control the chaos if she just played smarter. But the walls were closing in. Federal investigators had started tracking the flow of money through her networks. Surveillance vans parked near the hotels she used. Friends became informants. Allies disappeared. And then came the knock on her door. It wasn't loud. It didn't have to be. When she opened it, the FBI was waiting. Suits, badges, handcuffs. The end of her story had arrived not with a bang, but with the quiet click of metal around her wrists. They took everything, her accounts, her notes, her freedom. Her name became a headline. The Poker Princess. They wrote stories about her without ever meeting her, painting her as a schemer, a criminal, a woman who'd seduced the rich and broken the law for fun. But Molly knew the truth was far messier than that. She'd been chasing something her entire life, the respect her father never gave her, the control her fall had stolen from her, the proof that she could win at a game where the rules were made by men. And for a time she had. Now she was a woman with nothing left but her story. The government offered her a deal: names for leniency, betray your players, sell their secrets, and walk away with a lighter sentence. But Molly refused. Those names, the actors, the bankers, the billionaires, they had trusted her, even when they didn't deserve to. She had built her world on loyalty. To betray them now would mean betraying herself. So she stood in court, head high, dignity intact, while her lawyer spoke for her. A man who didn't believe in her at first, but grew to understand her strength. She was no criminal mastermind. She was a woman who'd played a dangerous game in a man's world and survived it on her own terms. The judge saw it too. He saw not greed, but grit, not deceit, but defiance. When the sentence came down, probation, community service, a fine, it wasn't victory, it wasn't defeat, it was freedom.